What disturbing thing did you learn about someone only after their death? My buddy's mom totally killed my buddy's dad. She had taken a $200K life insurance policy out on him 6 months before he died, and he died from not taking his medication that he'd taken no problem all of his life. My buddy was away for the weekend so wasn't home when his dad died. After his mom died, we found out she'd taken a life insurance policy out on my buddy at some point too, and she'd also forged his signature to sign over $100K my buddy's dad had left to him. She also faked illnesses to get prescription drugs and had little books filled with info on what she'd sold and how much she'd made from selling them. Apparently this story is not uncommon. Brother-in-law's best friend rang him distraught after going through his recently deceased, much older sister's papers. He had discovered that she wasn't his sister as he had thought for the last 70 years, she was his mother. Usual story, teenage pregnancy, went to a convent to have the baby, gave it to mum to bring up. He apparently had a good relationship with her, and he was upset because she couldn't tell him the truth. I feel so sorry for the young mothers. Imagine living with that knowledge that you birthed the child and now you must pretend you have a new baby brother or sister. I once had a friend whose dad died. And he never really talked about it, but he was pretty troubled. Every year on his death date, they would have a celebration of life party. He invited our friend group one year, and we were all excited to be there to support him. Turns out his dad died in a car accident involving a drunk driver. The dad was the drunk driver and also killed the family he hit. Jesus. How did you guys react? I once went to a joint funeral of a guy who killed his wife, shot a lover, he lived, and turned the gun on himself. Super awkward. Well. We kinda brought it up to him to see how he really felt about everything, and he defended his dad. I understand that's a hard situation because you lost your dad. But your dad also killed a whole family. I'm not friends with him anymore. For a different reason. But that helped in my decision to break our friendship. He was very troubled. That weekend we were with him for the celebration, he ended up sexually assaulting my best friend. But no one but me and her know about it. Obviously she isn't friends with him either. My BIL died in an accident, and his wife found out by going through his phone that he was sleeping with several other women. Many of whom were pretty close in our friend group, and some were also married. It was quite awkward and got pretty messy. That's exactly what happened to me. I lost my wife to a drunk driver, and then I found out she had been cheating on me all through our marriage. Sister's fiancé died very suddenly and very tragically from a heart attack. She was 20, he was 23. It was an underlying condition. In the months following his death she found out he had been cheating on her basically since the start of their relationship, 2 to 3 years. Some women were long-term and knew about her, others were just casual one-night stands that prob didn't know. She kind of went off the deep end a little. BC now was she not only mourning a man she loved, she now had to deal with this fact without being able to ask him for answers. Silver lining though, she ended up dating and marrying one of his good friends. They sort of bonded in the aftermath of his death. He is the best thing that ever happened to her and vice versa. They will be married for 3 years this summer. After my grandfather's death we were cleaning out his old house and I found an envelope with paperwork that basically said my dad had died by suicide. I had been told as a kid that it was a heart attack. It was a shitty way to find out the truth. That's dark. I'm sorry. My uncle had a son he never told us about for 25 years. My grandpa had a son he never told us about too, and my grandma's current fear is that one day he'll come looking for my grandpa and she'll have to tell him that he died over 10 years ago. This just happened with my father. Did a gene test and was contacted by a sister I didn't know I had on my dad's side. She had been looking her whole life, her mom gave her a list of possible names, but my dad went by a nickname. Had to let her know he passed a decade ago. Was tough. One of my best friends died suddenly and clearly didn't have a chance to clean up his affairs beforehand. He had little family so the group of friends handled everything. We found porn in his house. Not just a few pieces or somehow accidental. It was in a file cabinet with folders and sorted by ages, sex, etc. Changed everything. That's simply not acceptable. Wow, that must have hurt to see. This happened to a friend of my parents. He died suddenly, only had an elderly mother. The friends gathered to help the old lady deal with his house, vehicles, boat, tools, etc. The friends found a lot of porn and a room in his house used for God knows what. They called the cops and told the dead guy's uncle to handle it. Not sure what happened, this was in the late 1980s. No one ever mentions that guy's name. My grandpa had stashed what would be worth millions today and proceeded to convince his family they were poor and had almost no money. His family lived in poverty while he lied to them all. My dad did something somewhat similar. He had sole control over all family finances. We definitely didn't live in poverty by any means, but he stressed my mom out about bills and sudden expenses and stuff all the time by claiming we were tight on money or running out of money or he wasn't making as much at the moment or etc. He's go as far as claiming we could lose the house, lose the cars, he might lose his job soon, we might not be able to pay the water electric phone bill. Oh no. Yeah, he had a shitton of money secretly stashed away in a separate bank account and was living lavishly on his business trips. There was never any danger to our house possessions way of life, he said those things and started those arguments for the sick pleasure of causing my mom pain, stress, and feeling powerful. And maybe for the thrill of having a secret. Who knows for sure, I guess. Also, I remember reading somewhere that a small number of people who grew up in poverty sometimes later develop an irrational fear of suddenly losing everything out of nowhere and begin hoarding wealth to compensate, even when rationally speaking, their life would be so much better if they actually used it. I received a phone call from my late husband's girlfriend the day of his funeral. She was phoning his cell phone, which I had turned off while he was in the hospital. She told me that my husband had been paying her rent for the last year. The bank had recently foreclosed on our house. I had no idea he was unfaithful to me, but she knew all about me. Jesus Christ. Hope you're on the mend, that's awful. Something similar happened to my mom. My dad had this mistress for whom he paid all the bills, including even her college bills. She was probably like 30 or 35. And he was 44 when he died. The college thing really hurt my mom as she always wanted to go herself, but there was never money. Anyways, the woman had the nerve to show at his funeral, she didn't stay, but went by the casket to say goodbye. Really shitty. My mom found out about their relationship before his passing, but he had tried to make amends, told her he and the woman were done for etc. And my mom stayed BC of her 3 kids. My dad would often threaten to kill me and my siblings, my mom and then himself if she left. We caught him cheating long before that as well. Lots of stories. My mom went through hell with that mofo. I don't really miss him at all, and I'm glad I didn't get to grow into an adult having him in my life, although given all his shit I matured a lot earlier than kids do. I was 11 when he died. Anyway, my mom endured a lot BC of him. I do not know how I could possibly go through what she did, she's a true hero. My grandpa was one strict by the book son of a gun, but after he died, we found a bunch of weed in his closet. Reminds me of how my brother and I found out my dad smokes weed. My dad has always seemed pretty square. One day he tells my brother they need to take a walk out to the shed. Our entire lives dad has always made it clear the shed is off limits. Dad takes my brother out there and right before opening the door tells my brother the wife says it's better you know now than find out after I die and you feel like you never knew me at all. He then opens the door to reveal his grow house. My brother couldn't wait to tell me that the secret dad has been hiding in the shed for 40 plus years is that he grows and smokes weed. It's now the source of many jokes, and dad often gifts my brother with amazing weed. That they didn't die when we thought? Here's the deal. My mom was raised by her mom, now 92, and an evil old bat, and her stepfather, who molested her. Where was dad? Died when she was 11, allegedly. That's what my grandmother said. This would have been around 1961. Flash forward to 2015 and my sister is doing genealogy work on the family. Finds out not only did my biological grandfather not die in 1961, he died in 2005. And had 5 more daughters, one of which he gave the same name as my mom. So my mom got cheated out of a potential relationship with her dad by her liar of a mom, who moved and remained hidden from her ex, my mom's real dad. My grandmother moved down to Texas from Virginia to stay in a nursing home and basically make my mom and dad's life hell. We went to visit one weekend and she came over for dinner. And I dropped the bomb on her that we'd figured out she'd been full of shit for 50 years. She then had the nerve to act offended. My dad told her to stfu. I like that your dad had your back. On one of his birthdays, we were driving him around for some weird reason. My grandmother calls to wish him a happy birthday and he's very pleasant and friendly to her. Hangs up. Says to me, I've been married to your mom for 43 years and one of my greatest accomplishments is that woman, my grandmother. Has no idea how much I hate her fucking guts. Nearly drove off the road laughing.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Reddit stories. Mothership will be glad with you.